Hey, Neck Nation. This is Kid James.
Shad Paskett.
And we're doing an interview today. We're going to mix it up. We're going to be talking about, we're going to title this episode Mindfulness. And I'm grateful that you guys are with us, joining us. And Shad Paskett, good friend of mine. His dad's like my brother. He grew up neck. He's Western as they all get, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, your dad's Western, bro. I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah, that he's crazy.
Yeah, he is. He's an awesome guy, but he's so Western that he tied a badger up in the back of his truck.
He did. He caught it underneath the trailer in the neighborhood and took it for a walk.
It doesn't get any more Western than that, right?
It don't.
So anyway, Shad, he's staying at the ranch with us, and so we figured, you know what? We're going to get in there and we're going to record something about mindfulness. And so, Neck Nation, tune in, get ready. You're going to learn something about mindfulness today. So, mindfulness, what does it mean to you, Shad?
For me, mindfulness is just trying to be aware of the people around you. I mean, there's a lot, especially nowadays, that people really have to go through every single day. I mean, we're exposed to so much information. We're exposed to so many different circumstances. Like, we just got through a pandemic. Yeah. Mindfulness is just being aware of the people that are around you, because you never know who's struggling.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I heard something not too long ago, and it said, if you treat somebody with kindness, but if you treat them like they're going through the darkest time of their life, 99% of the time you're going to be right.
Yep.
So that's probably a pretty good rule of thumb to use, you know. And you know what? We go through stuff all the time, and I think we, just because of Facebook and Instagram and all our social media feeds, no one puts what they're really going through on there.
Yeah, they put the best of the best. They
put
it up for display, and all the hard stuff's packed behind.
Yeah, so you assume, right? They're just fine, right? And even if someone asks us, that's why we're doing this. I mean, necks are the worst, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you get hurt and I ask you, you okay? What are you going to say?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, right? That's how you grew up. You're always good. You could be bleeding out and you're good. So you were telling me something about mindfulness with one of the places that you worked at that really hit home for me, and I think it's good to share it with Neck Nation and that perspective.
Yeah, so I thought that was super cool. In the training, they showed us this video, and Chick-Fil-A actually came out with it. It was all kind of just around mindfulness and offering the best service to their customers. I mean, you go there and super friendly environment, my pleasure, kind of stuff. And in this video, they have like a guy, he approaches the counter and he's ordering food and whatnot. And it shows a blip of his life that he's just went through a divorce. And then it shows a person behind the counter. They're taking the order. Their parents just separated. And it goes throughout the video showing just one life circumstance after another, people eating there at Chick-Fil-A. Yeah. And it's like just came from a funeral and graduation and those kinds of things. There's good celebrations, bad celebrations, and why not treat people the way that they would want to be treated? Why not show them the best experience and give them the best service that you can, because you never know what's on the other side. Yeah. You never know what they're going through.
Right. I think that's such a good perspective, because you can get kind of set in your way, especially when you're working, right? Mm-hmm. When someone comes up and is either ordering something or asking you a question, you just want to get rid of them, right? Order up.
Exactly.
Okay, get out of here, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes we just get set in our ways and we just want to check the box, right? Mm-hmm. And move on. But that's a really good perspective, because you meet people every day of your life. And I think some of the most important people that we meet, that we obviously see every day, the ones that are closest to us, I think we take for granted the most. And that's the people between our four walls, and our family, and that's a good reminder, just to every time, when you've got little brothers and older sisters and younger sisters, and I mean, sometimes, you're at each other's throat, right?
Yeah.
And it's because you're always around them.
Yeah, and you kind of just, I mean, I don't know. It seems like you just kind of forget the boundary.
Yeah.
It's like, you love them and you care about them. There's so much emotion in whatever circumstance you're in. And then all of a sudden you're just, because you know that you're so free and open with them, that it allows harder sides of you to come out.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's not the right reaction.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's, so I think that's something to keep in mind. It's easier to treat some stranger on the street with respect or to be kind to them.
Yeah.
And then you go home and it's like the ones that matter most, the ones we're around the most, we take for granted and we're ready to pick on them, right?
Yeah.
And so I was always telling my boys used to fight all the time. And I had this story, I hired this guy and he's a Tongan kid, big, strong Tongan kid, right?
Yeah.
And he comes to work one day, and my kids just loved him. You know, they were friends, or they'd call him uncle and stuff. You know, and they're always friendly with him, and he was really cool. The Tongans are always just so freaking happy, dude. It don't matter what's going on in their life, dude. They are all good, and they have the best attitudes. And so he shows up, and just a real likable guy. He shows up one day. He's a few minutes late, and my son comes over. He's like, "Have you seen so-and-so?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Dude, he's all busted up, got a black eye and broken nose." And I'm like, "You serious?" And I'm like, "Who's he squabbling with? Let me go talk to him." And I said, "What's up?" He's like, "No, nothing." I go, "Take your glasses off." I go, "What happened to you, man?" He goes, "Oh, no, just fought with my brother." And I'm like, you know, and it was tough because when you hear the whole backstory, his brother came home from the Marines and had PTSD and was struggling mentally with some stuff, and he's trying to help him, give him a positive outlook, and in that help, right, with the brother, because we are so free and so open, they get into a full-blown, you know, fist fight. And I'm like, "Dude, your brother's tough because I know you're tough." And I said, "He messed you up pretty good. You need to go get checked. You need to go to the hospital, fix your nose." "Ah, it's all right." And I made him go. I'm like, "No, dude. Like, your nose, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crooked. You need to go get it fixed." So anyways, he comes back the next day and I'm like, "Did you talk to your brother?" And he goes, "No." I'm like, "I'm going to tell you something, man." I said, "I'm always on my kids, you know, to be best friends, get each other's back. Right." And I said, "You should make sure and make up with your brother." And he goes, "Oh, I'm going to for sure." And I said, "Don't put it off." And I don't know why I told him that, but I did. Long story short, he calls me in tears on Saturday, and he says, "I can't come to work," because we're going to work part day Saturday. And Friday night, his brother was walking home from the bar and got hit by a car and passed away. And I said, "Did you get a chance to talk to him?" And he said, "No." And he was just, man, busted up. And
Can't imagine.
Yeah. And that killed him. And it was 2.5 weeks before Christmas. And I mean, it's just, but it's like bananas. It just, bad news is, it just comes in bunches at certain times. And so anyways, I'm like, "Is there anything I can do?" He's like, "Man, I'm not going to be to work for a while. I got to clear my head and do the funeral and stuff." And so we ended up taking him, you know, got together with a couple of friends and took him, made sure their family had Christmas. And it was a real touching, cool experience, because when we took it over there, it was me and my boys, and he looked at my boys and he said, and he called them by name, and he said, "Don't fight, man. Tell like, love each other." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really, it hits home when it's something that heavy. And the truth is, family's important, man, no matter what, right? But sharing kindness, I look at kindness as one of those things, and mindfulness. It's one of those things. Kindness is one of those things, one of those gifts you can give away, but you always get it back, right? And so, man, we need to give it away to everybody, because the one thing this world needs is some light.
That could not be more accurate. I think the coolest part in that too, is that's such a great example of how life turns on a dime.
Yeah.
It completely changes around in a moment.
Yeah.
It could be a loved one passing away, or it could be losing your job, something. And what better way to have someone approach you than to have love and that mindfulness, that compassion, and somebody that is just, even though they're completely unaware, they show that you matter.
Yeah.
Show that things are good. They show that light and upliftment.
Yeah. Yep.
It's needed.
Oh, it's so needed. And you know what? That's why we're in here sending this message. It's something important. No matter where you're at, no matter what you're going through, and no matter how heavy things seem, you know what? Look outside yourself, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is when we're looking inside of ourselves, we're only focused on ourselves. But when you open up and look outside, it's a lot easier to be aware and be mindful, right?
Yeah.
And pay attention. So,
yeah. And I think especially just as we're aware of like the way that we say things and when we say them.
yeah.
One of the things that I really appreciate from examples that I have in my own life, my fiance's dad, he's a really busy guy. And he's been able to structure his life in a way that he separates church from home. He's really good at compartmentalizing.
Right.
And kind of just going towards what we were talking about a little earlier is it's so important because the people in your home are the ones that matter most.
Yeah.
And I feel like life has its way of all of a sudden you're handed some great big project and your focus is just stuck on it.
Yeah.
You're like, crap, how am I going to get this job done? How am I going to make everything happen, fall into place? It just one thing after another. And you come home and you have that stress.
Yeah.
You come home and you have those worries in it. Whether you voice that or not, it bleeds out onto everybody else.
Yep.
And they feel that energy. They feel the need to deal with this issue that they don't even know what it is.
Right.
And when you find a way to separate the work life and the family life and the social life, it, at least from what I've seen, life is so much happier.
Yeah.
And things go so much more smoothly, not in the sense of everything just works out, but because you have that happiness, that light in your life, everything, it's like your problems don't carry the same weight that they would have.
Yeah.
And I think especially keeping that weight out of the house is so important.
Yeah. And it's hard to do. There was a time in my life when we would be on vacation and I'd be answering the phone and my kids, they knew. I'd snap my fingers and they were quiet, right? And then I'd hang up and then be back at it. And now when we're on vacation, bro, you better call 911 because I ain't answering. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have learned it doesn't matter. There's always going to be problems when I leave town. Mm-hmm. Something's going to get messed up. And
always.
So just let it get messed up. What am I going to do about it while I'm out of town? Mm-hmm. Nothing. Right? Just let it get real good and messed up, and then when I get back, we'll figure it out.
Exactly.
And I had to learn that the hard way. It's tough. But you know what I noticed is the kids really appreciate the small things, and they notice, and they're aware, and they're pretty mindful, more mindful than I'd like sometimes, right? And they see that, hey, you know, Dad's taking time or so-and-so's taking time. When you give up time, man, it's precious. But when you be where you are or you're there, like mentally, physically, emotionally, you're not distracted. And that's the biggest thing. There's so many distractions.
Oh, yeah.
And some of them are minor and some of them are major. And it's like easy to get distracted. But a lot of the time, you know, I look back when I was on vacation physically, but maybe mentally I was somewhere else trying to close a deal or do something. And I end up majoring in minor things. And, dude, I don't want my major to be minor. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's a good point. That's really good because there's a lot of distractions, a lot of noise.
Tons. And I like what you said too, because I know for a fact those moments, especially where they recognize like, hey, this is a time that Dad could be crushing out calls, doing his thing, making everything else happen on the work front, but he's here.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about my fiance's father is that he's incredible at that.
Yeah.
Everything at work, it could be melting down. And he's like, all right, well, we're here playing pickleball or whatever, you know?
Right.
And he doesn't let it change his mood and change where he is.
Yeah.
I remember times growing up, my dad would come home, he'd 12-hour day, just worked his brains out and exhausted.
Yeah.
You can see it on his countenance. You just, even if he puts on a brave face, you could tell he was just exhausted.
Yeah.
And the memories that I cherish the most and that I feel like were really helpful in my perspective of how I want to be a father in the future is, even though he was exhausted, he could have sat on the couch, could have watched TV, could have went to sleep, whatever he wanted to do.
He could have checked out.
Yeah, could have checked out. But we went out back and we tossed the ball.
Yeah.
And we went out and we talked about the dirt bike. We went and rode dirt bikes. We did the things that I asked to do because I was so excited to see him, and he knew that.
Yeah.
And he, even though he had just worked the day of all days, he was willing to sacrifice for me in that what you could call a really uphill battle.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, especially when you get exhausted.
Yep.
We all know it's tough to want to keep going. So.
Yeah. And your dad, he grinds. He's a hard worker, man. How many acres is he running on the farm?
He's got 3,200 acres and about 1,700 planted. So.
Wow.
He's
See, he grinds.
He's got a handful. It's him and 2 other people out there.
Yeah.
Him and his wife and 2 kids, and they're just on the grind. So.
Yeah, dude, your dad's neck is heck, man. He'll get after it, but he does. He sees when it's important, and that's a great example. We always need to do that. So, Shad, thanks for being here, man, and I appreciate it. But I like your perspective on that. That's really good. And so you're engaged to be married?
Yeah, here in August we're planning. So
you got, bro, you're gonna figure all this awareness and mindfulness out real quick and in a hurry.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I'm trying to as fast as I can. It's a lot to take in. So.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, and that's awesome.
It.
And I've got one question for you before we end, and that is, NECKROOTS is all about our roots, right? And remembering our roots. Oh, yeah. Why do you think it's important to you? There's no right or wrong answer, but why do you think it's important to remember your roots?
That's a good question. For me, I think it's one of the ways that I like to look at it is the term of the path of life that we're on. As we go down this path of life, there's staircases, there's mountains, there's valleys, there's all kinds of different things that we have to climb and overcome or sink down into. And regardless of what you were born into or where you came from, what it is that you had to deal with, especially with a lot of the issues that have been going on, those are the things that really build you. Yeah. Those are the things that make you who you are and show you who you want to become. And I think a lot of it, as those experiences build you, you have the good and the bad. You really see, okay, this is exactly what it is. And just like with my dad, this is something that I want to implement into my life because of how important it was to me.
Yeah.
And then you see the other side of, I want nothing to do with that.
Right.
That's the opposite direction I want to go.
Right.
And if it weren't for those experiences, you wouldn't be you.
Right. You're absolutely right.
If you forget those things, if you forget you, you're just going to be wandering. And so it's so important to know who you are and where you came from, and especially those that came before you. So.
Yeah. Those are our roots too, our ancestors. Okay. I love it. Neck Nation, thanks for joining us. Make sure and click the like button, subscribe, go to the website, and appreciate your support. We're out.